Okay, with this video, we're going to start Chapter 3, Data Visualization. We're going to look at many different types of visualizations or charts, and the main reason for visualization is to understand the data better, or are there any relationships among the predictor variables, in which case there will be multicollinearity that needs to be taken care of if the variables are skewed to the one way or the other, or if there are any outliers. So these are the reasons why we want to thoroughly explore the data using the visualization um, methods that are available. And in the most part, we're going to be using a ggplot package or, for R. There are one or two cases where I would uh, demonstrate what's in the textbook, but in the most part we're going to be using ggplot. Okay, the first thing to do is to set the default folder path. Okay, I've already copied from my text file where I have saved the path, so I'll just paste it. Okay, and then run that. So we have set the default path. We're going to be using the library called tidyverse. Okay, tidyverse right there. Okay, if you don't have tidyverse installed, you need to go and install it from packages install. Right? And you run that. Okay, now you see tidyverse is a collection of four, 8 packages. Okay, and these are all very useful packages. Okay, and ggplot is part of that package. So you don't have to do a library for ggplot separately. If you use library tidyverse, then ggplot will be available to you. Okay. Next, we're going to read the data file. So let's say housing.df. Okay, read.csv, Boston housing .csv. Okay, and since we have already set the default folder path, now this is going to read the Boston housing file. Okay, so there it is, 506 observations and 14 variables. Okay, and we can do a head and check out the different columns, and then if it gives you the top 6 observations down here. So you can examine the data and you can see that they're all numerically coded. Okay, here we know that Chaz is a binary variable that indicates whether the property is adjacent to Charles River or not. So it's a 0-1 variable. And catmedv is category of median value that also is a 0-1 binary variable. So these two are not actually numerical variables. So what we're going to do is we're going to change these two variables into factors. So housing df, okay, dollar chaz, and we'll do as factor housing df chas. Okay, so that's going to convert the column chas into a factor variable, and we'll do the same thing with cat med v, again as factor cat med v. Okay, we run these two. All right, so now if you do a str structure, so that will show us for each column, okay, what type of column it is. And you see chas is a factor now, and cat med v is a factor. All right, now we're going to look at the first figure 3.1. So here we have 4 charts. The first one is Amtrak, a time series plot. So we'll look at that plot a little later. So right now we'll look at these 3, and then when we do this, and when we get to a point where we will be able to do the time series plot, then we'll put all the 4 together in a grid fashion. Okay, so first we're going to start with this one, and then this and this. So scatter plot. Okay. Now we'll start with the plot code that is part of our base R. Okay. Then we give the 2 variables for the scatter plot, the y-axis variable and the x-axis variable. So we want housing df med v, so that's our y-axis. So we will give the x-axis variable and y-axis variable. So housing df med v, so that's the x-axis variable, and then housing df L stat. Okay, and if you run this, it will produce your scatter plot, right? But we do want to change the labels here, so we can continue after this, right? X lab equal to, so in ggplot we'll do within parentheses, but here in the base plot code we do the labels as xlab equal to. So median value, and then ylab equal to L stat. Okay, so that's changed. Okay, so now if you want to give a title for the graph, then we use main equal to scatter plot of L stat versus median value, or med v. Okay, so that's the code for plotting using the base code. Now if you want to do this with the ggplot, which gives you much more capability, okay, so we start with ggplot, and the first thing you want to do is to specify what the name of the um, data table is. So housing df, so that's the name of the uh, data. All right, then ggplot can be used in many different, it's a very flexible piece of code. So after having given the name of the data, then we can do what is called mapping. Okay. And oftentimes we can leave the mapping equal to out and simply go into the options, because ggplot is intelligent enough to figure out what each piece within the function is. Like for example, if you did not start with data equal to and simply put housing.df, ggplot will figure out that that's the data that you're wanting to use, and it'll automatically read this as data. Okay. Now in mapping, there are many options that you can provide for mapping, but the most important one is what is called aesthetics. So that is AES, and here is where you will specify what the x-axis is going to be, what the y-axis is going to be, what color you want to use, and that kind of stuff. So now we're going to do AES x equal to, okay, let's make sure that, okay, medv is in x-axis. All right. So x is equal to medv. Right. So you don't have to specify housing.df here, because you've already specified that the data that we want to use is housing.df. So we can simply specify what the x is going to be, and then y needs to be medv. Okay. All right. So now that's just telling ggplot where the data is, what is to be used as x and what is to be used as y, and we haven't said anything about how to do the plotting. So if you run this code right now, you will see nothing. So it's just a template for the plot. So now we have to add layers to this main graph template that we have. So for a scatter plot, okay, scatter plot is given by geom point. Okay. So now if you run, you see a plot. See there, I made a mistake here. I put x equal to medv and y equal to medv as well. So you get a straight line like that. I should have lstat. Okay. So now we can add additional layers of formatting. Okay, so here suppose we want the color to be, okay, instead of black, suppose we say navy, then you get navy. Okay, and you can, there is another option called alpha equal to, okay, now alpha is the transparency, or how bright the color is. So if you use a number less than 1 is default, so if you use a number less than 1, then it will become less bright and it will become more transparent. Okay. All right. Then let's give some titles. Okay, so again you do a plus after that, GG title. Okay. Now you then give the plot title within brackets and within quotation mark. So scatter plot of LSTAT with medv or whatever that is appropriate. Okay, and then let's give title for the x-axis. X-axis is median value, right? And y-axis, say, let's say we want to just use the default. Okay. So now if you run, all right. So we have the title. Y-axis title is the default. X-axis title is the one we changed to.